Hello all, this is a video, as you can see, about Ovid's Metamorphoses, Book 3, lines 676 to 700. So in the part just before this, we've had the sailors, the ship of the sailors has been stopped by Bacchus, and he has kind of revealed himself in all its glory. The ship's been held back by kind of various bits of foliage, kind of lots of vines and things to do with grapes. And we've got that kind of around Bacchus are lying lots of different animals. And then we have that one of the first sailor, Medon, is said to kind of, his skin starts to grow dark, and it's hard and scaly, and essentially, you know, a metamorphosis is taking place. But we then have, Libis, who is another one of the sailors, that while he was wanting to obvertere, to return the remos, the oars that are described as obstantes. Obstantes there is our verse variation of the obstantes, the accusative plural. So he was wanting to return the oars that are hindering the ship. Return them, he wants to remove them out of the water and bring them back into the ship. But he with it, he saw, and then we go into indirect statement, saw that his hands literally were jumping back, were shrinking into a broes spartium, into a short distance, I suppose, space, and so a short length, and so they were getting smaller, they were shrinking. And he also saw that they were not now yam, they were not manus, they were not hands. And in fact, yam, now, they were posse, they were able, wakari, to be called pinas. Now this is the crucial part, that they are not hands anymore, but they are pinas, they are flippers. So if we have a look at this, but Libis, when he wanted to return the hindering oars, saw his hands suddenly shrink into a short length, and he saw now that they were not hands, now they could only be called fins. And if we move on to the next parts, so this is looking at lines 6, 7, 9 onwards, that another, desiring to kind of stretch, to stretch his brachia, his arms, to the intortos funes, to the twisted ropes, but he non habuit, he did not have brachia, he did not have arms, and repandus, curved. So this is again part of the metamorphosis, that he's now curved, repandus. He desiluit, he jumped in undas, into the waves, with his trunco corpora, with his trunco here is going to be limbless, so he's without any limbs, his limbless body. And his cauda, his tail, but there's no wisthima tail. So literally kind of newest, most recent, but here it's going to kind of mean the end of his tail. It was falcata, it was curved, just like the horns of a lunae dividui, of a half moon, just like they are sinuanta, like they are curved. And on all sides, the creatures, if you have a look at the vase at the back, you can see that they are in fact dolphins, that the dolphins, they gave saltus, they gave jumps, and they were roarant, they were wet with multa ad spergina, with much spray, and they emerged iterum again, and then they returned versus again under the waves, under the sea, the iquora, and they were playing in speciam chori, in the appearance of a choral dance, a dance group, and they were yactant, they were throwing their lasciva corpora, their playful bodies, and they were efflant, they were blowing out the mare, the sea that is described as aceptum, received, taken in. They were blowing this out through their naribus patulis, through their nostrils, their noses, which is described as broad. So if we have a look here, so another eager to stretch out his arms to the twisted ropes, either kind of the plaited ropes of the ships, did not have arms any longer, and curved, he jumped into the waves, his body limbless. The end of his tail was curved, just as the horns of the half moon are curved. On all sides the dolphins leapt up, and they are drenched with much spray. They emerge again and return again to the sea, and play in the appearance of a dancing group, and throw around their frisky bodies, their playful bodies, and snort out the drawn-in seawater through their broad noses. So if we have a look at the next part, so we move on to line 687, that from 20, not so long ago, De Wiginti, from 20, motto, only recently, for Ilaratis, that boat Ferobat Tot was carrying so many, was carrying that number. Solus restabam, I alone remained. And the Deus, the God, he firmat, he roused me, he kind of woke me up, who's described as powerdum and gelidum, afraid and cold, trembling in my body, trementi corpora, and a body that is vix meum, scarcely my own. And speaking, he said, excute your excute metum from your corda, shake off fear from your heart, and tene diam, make for dia, which is another name for Naxos, which, if we remember earlier from the story, is where Bacchus wanted to go. And kind of born in Ilam, Dilatus born kind of into that place that I took on the sacred rites, Aceti Sacris. I took on the sacred rites, and I kind of now am a frequent worshipper, frequento, of the Bacchaea Sacra, of the Bacchic sacred rites. So, out of 20, only a short time ago, for that was how many that ship was carrying, I alone remained. The god roused me, cold and afraid, my body shaking and scarcely my own, saying, shake off fear from your heart and make for Naxos. Born to that island, I joined the sacred rites, and now celebrate the Bacchic rites. So the last little part, beginning with line 692 and finishing at 700. So that was the end of Acuites' story, and we've now got Pentheus. Pentheus inquit. Pentheus said, Pribuimus, we have provided object aures, our ears, for your longis ambargibus, your long ramblings, so that our anger posset absumeret might be able to take up kind of vires, might be able to use up its strength mora with delay. So that he's saying that he's put up with this story for so long in the hope that he might eventually actually calm down. But we see that from the next part that that's not the case. That he then goes on and he says, family, attendants, rapite hunc, seize this man and do it praecipitem, kind of headlong, straight away, immediately, seize him, and demitite, and send him down to the Stygiae Nocti, to the Stygian night. The river Styx there, so a reference to the underworld. Send him down, or send not him down rather, but his corpora, send his cruciata corpora, his body tortured by diris tormentis, by dreadful torments. So essentially, attendants, seize this man immediately and send down the body tortured by dreadful torments to the Stygian night. And immediately, Protonus, Abstractus dragged away Tyrrhenian Acuites. Tyrrhenian, reference to kind of where Acuites come. Again, that he's an Eastern, he's an Easterner, he's from the East, from the Orient, as they would have seen it. So Tyrrhenian Acuites is closed up, Clauditor, in a tectis solidis, in a secure prison, I suppose. And while the crudelia instrumenta, while the cruel instruments of the iusai necis, of the ordered execution, and namely these cruel instruments are ferrum and ignes, are iron and fire, while these things are prepared. And then we've got Pharma S. The story is, so this is kind of Ovid saying that, so it goes, it's told that, it might be difficult to believe, but the story is, and then we go into indirect statement, the story is that the doors, patuissa, the doors kind of sprung open, spontesua, of their own accord, and that the caternas, that the chains, they lapsas with esse, kind of assumed that the chains slipped from his lacertes, again, spontesua, of their own accord, and nullo solvente, finishing there with an ablative absolute, with no one loosing them. So that, again, emphasizing that these chains are doing of their own accord. So Pentheus said, We have only provided our ears to these long ramblings so that our anger may spend its strength in delay. Quickly, attendants, seize this man and send his body, tortured by terrible torments, down to Stygian night. Acoetes, the Tyrian, was immediately dragged out and shut in a secure prison, and while the cruel tools, the iron and the fire, of the ordered execution were being prepared, the story is told that doors flew open of their own accord, and the chains slipped from his arms, although nobody untied them. So we see there that Bacchus is obviously looking after his attendant, and we're now, in the next few bits, the last bits of our prescribed lines, we're going to see the downfall of Pentheus.